Good morning from New Orleans, Louisiana. I got here yesterday, so I did have time to see a bit of the city already, and I can tell you this, it's a pretty amazing place. Now, what I'm gonna do today is just take you on a little tour of New Orleans and show you some cool places. So, come and join me. New Orleans is famous all over the world for its jazz music and also for its historic architecture. And most of that architecture is located in what is called the French Quarter, and this is where we are heading now. So we are now just a few blocks away from the French Quarter, and here you can already see some beautiful historic houses. First impressions, New Orleans is very loud. I mean, there's a lot of construction, a lot of noise everywhere, and of course music. We will see a lot more music soon, but yeah, this is the first thing you'll notice here. This street right here is called Bienville Street. Well, I don't know how Americans pronounce that, but Bienville was a French military officer who actually founded the French Quarter. And the French Quarter dates mostly from the 18th century. So what you should know is that New Orleans was a French territory. The French actually captured it from the Spanish, and then the French, to be exact, Napoleon, sold it to the United States. Look at this huge truck. You won't see a truck like that in Europe, only in America. And yeah, we are now inside the French Quarter, and you can see here lots of jazz bars, historic architecture, and I can already hear some music in the background. It's now 11 a.m. and what is also super cool about New Orleans is that the bars here, basically they never close. So they are open all day long and all night long. So if you're the kind of person who likes to drink during the day or just party all night long, you'll be happy in New Orleans. This right here is the world famous Bourbon Street. This is where it's all happening. So I was here last night and it was absolutely packed, even though it was a Tuesday. So basically every night of the year you can just party here and it never stops. I have to say I really like this architecture here. It's just so nicely preserved and it looks really amazing. You won't find this architecture anywhere else in the US. And another thing that I really like in New Orleans is that the French Quarter and this whole tourist area is really walkable. So it's one of the only cities in the US where you can just walk to most places, and they also have streetcars here. And these are not just tourist attractions, these are actually real modes of public transportation. Yay! That's something that isn't the case in too many American cities. So here you can just get anywhere by public transport or walking. Well done, New Orleans. This is one of the most famous corners here. This is where all the tourists take pictures, because you got these beautiful houses, and yeah, it's an Instagram location. Now let's walk a little bit more into this direction. I have to say I'm sweating like hell, because if you come here in June, it's super hot and humid. People actually say New Orleans is in a swamp. So if you come here between June and August, you're just gonna get roasted. And I have to say the place here is very touristy. There's lots of tourists from all over the world, but it doesn't feel like a trap. Prices aren't that high, and you know, you still have good service. So might be very touristy, but it's not a tourist trap. This right here is Jackson Square with the famous St. Louis Cathedral that was built in the early 1700s, I believe. And yeah, this looks a lot like some squares in the Caribbean or in Europe. So let's go check out the cathedral. Let's see what it's like from inside. really beautiful cathedral. It was actually built in the 1800s over the foundations of an old colonial church. And yeah, it's very well preserved and great place to go. Just see the beauty of this architecture here in New Orleans. Really cool cathedral, this, very well preserved. And here you can see the buildings of the French Quarter, the historic architecture, and in the background the skyscrapers of New Orleans CBD, the Central Business District. And now I think it's time for some food, because New Orleans is also famous for that. So let's go and see what we can find. Was some excellent food, and I have to say, one thing I really like about New Orleans with this Creole cuisine, because this food is obviously Creole, is that the portions aren't as oversized. I mean, they aren't small, but they are a bit smaller than other places in the US. And this is something that I personally like. Most Americans probably don't like it, because when I come to the US, I often have trouble finishing the portions in the restaurants. So here in New Orleans, the portions are a little bit smaller, which is good. What else? What other food should I really try here?
Oh, the jambalaya. They got some good food here in Rouse's.
Yeah.
Also, Oceana Grill.
Okay.
Got some great food. They got gator bites that are really amazing.
Alligators, yeah. I have to try that. Yeah.
Have you tried the frog legs?
Sorry?
The frog legs.
Frog legs, yeah, but well, I know that from France, but I haven't eaten them here.
Okay.
But they are, you know, they're also in France.
Yes, sir.
Frog legs.
Yeah.
Do you like frog legs?
I do.
Okay.
I like them a lot.
Yeah, that's like.
Other thing, did you try the crawfish yet?
Which one?
Crawfish.
Crawfish? Oh yeah. I've tried that one.
Yeah, because they got some here too. I was gonna say they do pretty good crawfish here as well.
Yeah, the locals here are really friendly as well. Really cool people. Some of them are a bit crazy, and when you are here, you're gonna get approached from time to time. And sometimes, you know, it's a bit sketchy, New Orleans. It does have a very dodgy side to it, but you know, if you don't go looking for trouble, you'll be fine. It's really not that bad. Now we are entering the famous Louis Armstrong Park, and Louis Armstrong was obviously one of the biggest jazz musicians of all time. So let's go check it out. I hope that there's a bit more shade, because it's so hot. I mean, June is definitely not the best month to come here because of the heat and humidity. Yeah, and there aren't too many people in the park here. Guess it's because it's now mid-afternoon and it's just so hot that most people, they are probably inside with their AC. But yeah, New Orleans, really cool city. Hello. Are you shy? I guess they are a bit shy. Some sculptures. There's the Theater for the Performing Arts. Does anyone know why this water is so green? Guess it has something to do with the geology of the place, but I'm not an expert on that. Now I found a spot with a bit of shade here inside Louis Armstrong Park, and I have to say I really like New Orleans. It's definitely one of my favorite cities in the US. Why? Well, because it's so unique. Now, many American cities, not all of them, but many cities here look exactly the same. You have one downtown core with skyscrapers and, you know, high buildings and offices. Then you have residential suburbs, and in between a few freeways. But New Orleans is not like that at all. You got this beautiful French Quarter, you got all of this historic architecture where you can actually walk, and you have all the jazz history, but you have much more here. And I got about 3 days here, and you could easily spend a week here and just go exploring all the time. But there's a lot to do, and just the vibe here is amazing. I mean, the people are cool. As I mentioned before, there is a bit of a sketchy side to New Orleans, but you know, it's easily manageable if you don't do stupid things. But yeah, all in all, New Orleans is an amazing city. Now, before we continue our little tour of New Orleans, I'm going to show you my hotel room so that you can see what you can expect in terms of accommodation here. So here it is. I'm just going to put the camera away when I enter the code. Let's go inside. So this is the room, and it's actually a serviced apartment, and it's not bad at all. So I'll give you a little tour. We got our kitchen here with a dishwasher, coffee machine, and a fridge. And also stove and microwave. Now, this fridge isn't as big as the one I showed you in Atlanta, but it's still not bad at all. And yeah, this is a huge microwave as well. Now here we got a big TV, of course, king-size bed, some art, and here's the bathroom. Actually a nice design, shower and sink. And yeah, little table here and a couch. So I have to say I really like this hotel room. The only thing that I don't like about it is this color here. But you know, you can't have everything. There's also a little balcony, but so the view isn't exactly that great. And it is so hot at the moment in New Orleans that you can't sit outside. Anyways, so yeah, this is my hotel room here. And how much was it? Around $100 a night. So I have to say that New Orleans is a bit more affordable than other cities in the US. It's not cheap compared to other countries, but still you get a little bit more for $100 a night than you would get in Atlanta, for example. And also the food and the drinks aren't as expensive as in other American cities. So yeah, let's continue our little New Orleans tour. Now walking here on Canal Street, which is one of the main avenues here in New Orleans. And New Orleans, it's not just jazz and architecture and French Quarter. There is also a very famous World War II site here. So we're gonna go check that out now. And for that, we are taking the famous New Orleans streetcar. So let's go.
Ma'am.
Thank you. Now that was the New Orleans streetcar, and before coming here I actually thought that this was a tourist attraction, and it kind of is, but it's also a pretty convenient way to get around. It obviously doesn't cover the whole city, but it goes to a few places that are of interest. So yeah, it's quite a nice way to get around, and New Orleans isn't that big, so here you don't need to take Ubers all the time, which is really nice. And yeah, now we are heading to a World War II museum. And I actually think, but I'm not sure, that this is the biggest World War II museum in the entire United States of America. So, there's a huge truck coming. Yeah, so let's go check out that museum and see what it's like. But I've heard good things. So, let's go. There it is. The building is absolutely massive. And there are actually several museums here. So I'm a huge history nerd, and one of the periods that interests me the most is World War II. So I'm really looking forward to this. Let's see what this museum has got to offer. Now inside the World War II museum, and it's absolutely massive. This part of the museum is all about D-Day, the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France. And I have to say, I know quite a lot about D-Day and World War II history in general. But in here, you're gonna learn a lot more. I mean, it's just phenomenal, the exhibits that they have here. And so far, I've only seen a small part of the museum. So let's continue.
strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
There's a B-17 bomber in the Freedom Pavilion all the way in the back, my gal Sal, as well as a lot of other airplanes.
Okay.
So if you're into airplanes, that's where you need to go.
I am into airplanes, so I'm heading there. Thank you. This museum is amazing. They got so much stuff here, and it's not just the history, it's also the interactive nature of it. Got so many movies playing, so many different exhibits, and you know, it's one of those museums that was just put together so well. You really have to come here when you are in New Orleans.
Lift off from the USS One. Their plan: fly 500 miles to bomb Japan, and pray that enough fuel remains to reach China. Doolittle's raid inflicts minimal damage.
This part of the museum is designed like the interior of a ship. Pretty cool. Now here we are in this section of the island hopping campaign in the Pacific, and this is one of the lesser known parts of World War II. Many people always speak about Europe, but the war in the Pacific was as brutal as the one in Europe. And they even have these jungle replicas to, you know, just show what the conditions were like in the Pacific. Now we are getting to the European section with the road to Berlin. Now I have to say, they also showed the effects of the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the war. So they aren't just painting everything in a super positive light. The museum is really objective in that manner. They aren't shying away from explaining what the atomic bombs did. So that's very important.
And are now casting their eyes on new conquests. Together, we face a daunting challenge with a war on two fronts. Our enemies in Europe dominate the skies and have infested the seas with deadly submarines.
Eisenhower gives the order to attack June 6th. Under a cloak of secrecy, a massive armada sails. 150,000 troops, more than 6,000 vessels and landing craft, backed by thousands of aircraft, focused on 5 Normandy beaches. The British and Canadians will land at beaches codenamed Gold, Juno, and Sword. The Americans at Utah and Omaha. Everything depends on the coming hours.
Now we are at the plane and vehicle section, and wow, there is so much to see here. I mean, I'm already in here for like 2 hours, and I can spend another 2 hours here. It's just incredible the amount of exhibitions. So that was the National World War II Museum, and I have to say this was one of the best museums I've ever been to in the United States. So if you are in New Orleans, don't just skip it. Don't just go drinking and partying in the French Quarter. Learn something about the history as well. That's the top travel tip here. Now walking here in a random street in downtown New Orleans, and I have to say I really had a great time here in New Orleans, or the Big Easy as they call it. It's a really unique city. It's got a lot of culture, but it's also got the partying, the jazz, the music and everything. So if you are in the US, I definitely recommend checking out New Orleans. I would say it's probably one of my top 3 cities in the US now. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time here, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. So thanks very much for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.